أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيد الأنبياء وخاتم المرسلين سيدنا ونبينا بالقاسم محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين واللعنة الدامة الباقية على أعدائهم من الآن إلى قيام يوم الدين. We have been looking at a brief review of Surah Yasin. We have looked at ayat number 1 to 6, and this time it seems I am not going fast enough to finish in 2 weeks. So we'll have to leave this completion, inshallah, after the month of Ramadan. But I would like to at least go through the first of the three topics of this surah. This is a surah which talks about the three fundamental concepts, Tawheed, Nubuwwat and Qiyamat. However, keeping the honor and respect that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has for His own Prophet, He starts talking about Nubuwwat first, and then He talks about Tawheed, and then ends with Qiyamat. The first 6 ayat that we looked at it, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Yasin wal-Quran al-Hakim, innaka lamin al-mursaleen ala sirat mustaqim, tanzil al-Aziz al-Rahim, litunzira qawman ma unzira abahum fahum ghafilun. This is the beginning of the theme about Nubuwwat, confirming the prophethood, as well as the truth of the Quran. And it also talks about the reason why the Prophet and the Quran were sent. Basically, number one, to warn the people. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Himself talks about it, that He was sent لِتُنذِرَ قَوْمًا مَا أُنذِرَ آبَاؤُهُمْ فَهُمْ غَافِلُونَ, so that you may warn thereby a people whose immediate ancestors had not been warned, and therefore they were in ghaflat and they were heedless. And so the purpose of Quran was basically to bring people out of this state of ghaflat. And so let us look at ayat number 7 this evening. لَقَدْ حَقَّ الْقَوْلُ عَلَى أَكْثَرِهِمْ فَهُمْ لَا يُؤْمِنُونَ. Indeed, the sentence has passed against most of them, and so they will not believe. Just by itself, it might seem, what does it mean? But this is actually very, very well linked to the theme before. Remember that, the earlier 6 ayat basically are talking about the messenger and the message. That is the theme. And then we look at the issue that in the words of Amir al-Mu'mineen, and we quoted it last evening, that Quran works like the rain on the dead soul. Just as the dead earth is revived by spring, Amir al-Mu'mineen says, study the Quran, because studying the Quran is Rabi'ul Qulub. It is the spring season for the hearts. When people study the Quran, their hearts are revived and they become alive. And so that is the theme. And so now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is talking about the reaction of the people. When the Prophet came, when the Quran came, in Mecca especially, what kind of response were there? When he talked about Quran, he says, Tanzil al-Aziz ar-Rahim, that this is a revelation which has come down gradually from the Lord who is powerful and merciful. And those 2 words were chosen as a response to 2 reactions. And Allah begins with a negative one first. And He says, let us look at those who were deniers, who denied the messenger and the message of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because the emphasis is that Quran can only penetrate the hearts which are pure and live, not the hearts which are dead. Look at the reaction of those people who were, especially the leaders of Mecca. We are not talking about everyone in the city of Mecca. No, Quran many times uses general statements about the era of Mecca, but it doesn't really mean every individual of Mecca. In most places, those words actually refer to the what we call Sanadid Quraysh, the leaders of Quraysh and the Mushrikeen. These were the people who knew the Prophet, his background, his family background, his character. They actually used to know him as As-Sadiq and Al-Amin, somebody who was truthful and trustworthy. And then he brings this message that Allah has sent me with this revelation, and they deny. And so it was not because of ignorance. It was not because of lack of knowledge. And this is where we'll see the message we're getting from this ayat is that it's not always knowledge and ilm is the solution. No, the problem actually lies somewhere else. And this is where, referring to their negative response, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, لَقَدْ حَقَّ الْقَوْلُ عَلَى أَكْثَرِهِمْ, referring to the majority of the people of Mecca, especially the leaders of Quraysh. Indeed, the sentence, al-qawl, here, qawl is not just the word or a sentence, it's a sentence in a sense of, judgment. Indeed, the judgment has been finalized, or the sentence has passed against most of them because they denied. فَهُمْ لَا يُؤْمِنُونَ, they are not going to believe. Of course, we'll talk about this inshallah tomorrow, that if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is already saying they are not going to believe, then they really don't have a choice. No, they had a choice. This is just Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, out of His unlimited knowledge that He knows how people are going to react. He's just making a statement that these are the people I know they are not going to believe. Now this statement, لَقَدْ حَقَّ الْقَوْلُ, that this sentence has been passed or the judgment has been finalized, actually refers to another ayat of Quran. And that's where we have to look at it. This is actually in conversation to the conversation between Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the shaitan. And this is in Surah Sad, Surah number 38, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala refers to this issue. And at the end, Allah says to shaitan, I will, قَالَ فَالْحَقُّ وَالْحَقُّ عَقُولٌ. And there it says, لَقَدْ حَقَّ الْقَوْلُ. This is where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is referring in Surah Yasin to this statement. فَالْحَقُّ وَالْحَقُّ عَقُولٌ, that this is the truth and I say the truth. لَأَمْلَأَنَّ جَهَنَّمَ مِنْكَ وَمِمَّنْ تَبِعَكَ مِنْهُمْ أَجْمَعِينَ, that I will surely fill the hell with you, shaitan, and whosoever of them who follows you. Ajma'een, all together. And so this was an issue that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had, mentioned very early. And it's interesting to look at this longer passage, this from Surah Sad. Let me just read it very quickly. You know the story. And so I rely on your knowledge about it. That when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told the malaika, and the Iblis was part of that assembly, then now that I've created Adam, the body of the Adam, when I put the soul in him, وَإِذَا نَفَخْتُ فِيهِ مِنْ رُوحِي, when I put the soul in this body, I would like all of you to go into the state of sajda to him. And all of them did that except Iblis. أَبَى وَاسْتَكْبَرَ وَكَانَ مِنَ الْكَافِرِينَ. He is the one who refused. And when he refused, of course, then there is a conversation going on in that Surah Sad where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, why did you do this? Is it out of this arrogance that you have, or you thought you are among those who are of a higher status, who were not addressed by this command to do sajda? Now that's another story, a longer discussion, that it means that even Allah here and even shaitan Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, did you do arrogance here? Or you thought you are included among those who were greater? It means there were some realities in form of nur who were greater than the malaika. And when Allah gave the order of sajda, it didn't apply to them. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, what happened? Are you being arrogant, or you thought you were among them? You are not. You are not part of that group. And, and so then the discussion goes on, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, after shaitan says, well, you created me from the fire, and you created him from the earth, I'm superior to him. And he talks about his arrogance. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, get out of here. You're rajim, you're mal'oon, and this and that. But before he leaves that assembly, قَالَ رَبِّي فَانظِرْنِي إِلَى يَوْمٍ يُبْعَثُونَ. Allah, give me, respite till the day when Adam and his children are brought back to life. And so he knows about it. He knows about Qiyamah, and he knows that the children of Adam will be brought back to life. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, out of his sense of justice, he says, فَإِنَّكَ مِنَ الْمُنظَرِينَ. Yes, I have given you that time that you want. إِلَى يَوْمِ الْوَقْتِ الْمَعْلُومِ. Till a known time, which Allah knows. He doesn't have to specify it to shaitan. And that is where shaitan shows his arrogance there. فَبِإِزَّتِكَ لِأُغْوِيَنَّهُمْ أَجْمَعِينَ. He says to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that I swear by your glory that I'm going to misguide all of them, Adam and his children, because I'm in this state because of him. إِلَّا عِبَادَكَ مِنْهُمُ الْمُخْلَصُونَ. Except those who are purified from among your servants. And this is where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala responds to the shaitan. قَالَ فَالْحَقُّ وَالْحَقُّ عَقُولٌ. He says, let it be known what is haqq and truth, and I say only the truth. لَأَمْلَأَنَّ جَهَنَّمَ مِنْكَ. That I'm going to fill the hell fire with you. وَمِمَّنْ تَبِعَكَ مِنْهُمْ أَجْمَعِينَ. And whosoever follows you from among them, أجمعين. All together I'm going to put you into Jahannam. And this is where we come to realize that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made that statement there, and now he is linking that to the judgment passed against the leaders of the mushrikeen of Makkah, the people who knew, they were not ignorant, the people who knew the background of Rasulullah, but because of their own barriers in their mind or their agenda, hawa and hawas as we call it, they refused to accept the message of the Quran. And this is where we come to realize that, we talked about it on Saturday, I think, that when we talk about guidance of the Quran, based on this dua of Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam, and the way Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about the role of the Prophet, that there are 3 stages of seeking guidance from the Quran. The 3 T's. Remember that? What was the first one? Tilawat. To recite the Quran. And the second one was Tazkiyah, purifying the soul with the tilawat of the Quran, ending with Ta'aleem. And this is where we have to realize that when we talk about seeking guidance from the Quran, it's not only the issue of knowing something. People know quite a lot, and that doesn't help. Sometimes we see, all the problem is because of ignorance and jahal and jahalat. Let's educate the people. There are people around the world who know many, many things, quite a lot, but they don't really live by that. Who doesn't know, for example, what is going on in Bahrain? The same Canadian government which talks about human rights all over the world, sells arms and ammunition to the government of Bahrain. Who uses that against whom? Against the Shia majority, actually, who does peaceful protest. So it's not that the people are ignorant here. It's not jahalat, which is the problem. Look at the issue of Saudi Arabia, this whole issue of Daesh. Who is strengthening this movement against, the Muslims in the Middle East, whether in form of Taliban, the extremism there, or the Daesh in Iraq and Syria. Everybody knows about it. The Western powers know about it, but they are the ones still have good relations with Saudi Arabia and Bahrain and Qatar and UAE. And so it's not an issue of, it is jahalat. No, it's not only ta'aleem and ilm which is going to help. That can only be beneficial if there is tazkiyah before ta'aleem. You look at the example of the shaitan. The reason he gives for not doing sajda itself shows that he believed in Tawheed, didn't he? Was he a muwahhid or not? He was a muwahhid. He believed in worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to the extent of denying, rejecting the command of Allah and saying, I'll not do sajda to Adam. I'll do sajda to you. And he had done this for, I don't know how many hundreds or thousands of years before. So he knew Tawheed, acted on Tawheed. Did he know Qiyamah? Remember the ayat, he says, oh Allah, give me the long life till the children of Adam are resurrected. So he knows Qiyamah, he knows that people will be brought back to life. So he has the knowledge of Tawheed, he has the knowledge of Qiyamah. What is left to become Muslim? Nubuwwat. His knowledge about Nubuwwat is probably more pure than many Muslims. Look at that. Out of his arrogance he says, I swear by your glory that I will surely misguide them all together. I think after saying that he realized he's really going beyond the limit. And so he stops. And what does he say? Except those of your servants among them who are purified by you. Whom he is referring to? So he knows that even among the children of Adam there will be some who are chosen by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Not only chosen, but they will be equipped in all ways, that they will be infallible. They will be ma'soom. That even shaitan, with all the power that he has of misguiding people, his influence will not reach those who are purified by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the understanding of shaitan about Anbiya and Mursaleen and A'imma was a complete understanding. He had total ilm there. That's where he actually stops himself. إِلَّا عِبَادَكَ مِنْهُمُ الْمُخْلَصُونَ. Except, those of your servants among them who are purified by you. And this is where we come to realize he knew about Tawheed, he knew about Nubuwwat, he knew about Qiyamah. No shak at all about these issues. And his understanding of the status of Nubuwwat was of a very high quality. But then he is still rajim, he is still mal'oon. Why? Because he refused to do sajda. To whom? Not refusing to do sajda to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but to Adam alayhi salam. And this is where we come to realize that, there is not only knowledge which is the solution, and this is where Quran says that if you really want to get the guidance, and that is the message of the earlier passage of Surah Yasin, and this is especially talking to the believers already. And there is initial level of guidance which is for everyone, believer and non-believers. Then there is a higher level of guidance, especially when you read the Quran. In order to seek that higher level of guidance, this is where we have to work on this issue of tazkiyah, to purify the soul, to get rid of the hijabat, the veils which are there on our hearts and minds, only then the nur of Quran will be able to help us. And that is the message that we are getting from this earlier passage where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is talking about the importance of the message and the messenger himself. Amir al-Mu'mineen, again, let me emphasize on this point when he says, tafaqahu, study the Quran. Because studying the Quran is Rabi'ul Qulub. It is the spring for the hearts. Just as the earth dies in winter and is revived by the spring season, similarly the hearts can also die. But in order to revive it, we need that tilawat of the Quran. And so tilawat is the first step, but that is not the end of it. I gave you the example of wudu. Let me repeat that with a more complete understanding of it. If a person stays in the state of wudu all the time, does he get sawab or not? Is it wajib to be in wudu all the time? No. Wudu is not wajib by itself. It is only wajib for namaz. Suppose somebody makes a habit that he is always in wudu. Whenever even it becomes batil, he goes again and does tajdeed wudu. Does he get sawab for it or not? What if he doesn't do the namaz? Does he get the sawab for wudu? No? Why not? Huh? Oh, Allah is not that bakhil. At least he has done wudu. So he will get the sawab for doing wudu. But he will get the adhab for neglecting the salat. So there are people who sit down, recite Quran. I'm not going back against what I've been saying before, read the Quran. No. I just would like to link it with the purpose. Tilawat is the first step. But tilawat of Quran is not for the sake of tilawat. Tilawat of the Quran for a mu'min is to purify the heart so that we can gain the ta'aleem of the Quran and the hikmah. That should be the purpose. Otherwise, yes, we just do the tilawat, we get the sawab. But then the actual essence of tilawat is to purify ourselves so that we can reach to the level where we become the hamilin of the Quran in our actions. And that is something which is very important, and we have to keep that all the time in our minds. Otherwise, you see, look at the example of the Quran, the shaitan himself. He had everything there as far as the knowledge is concerned. But the whole issue was that this sense of obeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what he didn't realize, that the same entity whom he considers to be his creator and the Lord, who created him from fire, he is the same one who is saying now do sajda to Adam. And this is where he didn't realize that the sajda was to Adam, and this is where I would say it was not only the issue of ilm, it was lack of knowledge. According to the narrations that we have about the creation of Adam, the body of Adam was created there long before this incident. فَإِذَا سَوَّيْتُهُ وَنَفَخْتُ فِيهِ مِنْ رُوحِي. When I have completed the body. So the body was complete. And what does shaitan say? You created me from the fire and you created him from the earth or the clay. He didn't realize that the order of sajda didn't come when the body was complete. So waitu means I have completed it, perfected it physically. So the body was perfect, complete. Manufacturing was done. But the order of sajda comes where? فَإِذَا نَفَخْتُ فِيهِ مِنْ رُوحِي. When I breathe my ruh into it, that is where you do sajda. Sajda was not to the body of Adam, sajda was to the ruh of Adam. This is where shaitan didn't realize. Of course, there also when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَنَفَخْتُ فِيهِ مِنْ رُوحِي, doesn't mean Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has a ruh. This is only what we call, because of the lack of, proper word in English here, I would say it is a matter of nisbat. To show the importance of the soul of a human being, Allah relates that to Himself. And He says, when I put in min ruhi, not that Allah has a ruh and a little bit of it went into Adam. No, He is not just min ruh, He is khaliq of ruh. But by saying ruhi, He is relating it to Himself, just to elevate the status of human beings over the malaika. And so this is what shaitan doesn't realize. And in words of, my teacher Ayatollah Wahid Khurasani, he says, that is the difference. When shaitan raised this objection, question was asked by shaitan as well as by the malaika. But the malaika obeyed when the command was given. Shaitan disobeyed. The difference was that they were looking at the body of Adam, whereas Allah was looking at the ruh. When they look at the body of the Adam, which is composed of, earthly entities, basically earth and the clay, which in essence has these elements of anger and desire and greed, that, he's going to create fasad, spill blood on the earth and his children. Whereas Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is looking at the ruh that He is creating for insan. And that is where He is not looking, their perspective was to see, when they see at the body of Adam, they see Fir'aun and Namrud and Shaddad and Abu Sufyan and Muawiyah. And when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives the order for sajda to Adam, He is not looking at the body, He is looking at the ruh. For Him, it is more like Muhammad and Ali and Fatima and Hassan and Hussein alayhi salatu wasalam. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the tawfiq to understand the hikmah of the Quran, and to give us the tawfiq to do the tilawat in order to purify ourselves during this holy month and gain the spirit of the message of the Quran through the teachings of the Prophet and the Ahlul Bayt alayhi salatu wasalam.